So what are those examples about? The 10 rocket height function has just one job. It's always going to output 10. Whatever you give it needs to give back 10. The examples check that the function is doing its job. So if the input is 0, right, so there's this function 10 rocket height and it's got some input. It's going to take something that you give it, that's an input. Let's say that input is 0 because in this case the 10 rocket height function is a function from numbers to numbers. So the inputs will all be numbers, the outputs will all be numbers. So let's say the input is 0, right? Then the 10 rocket height function will output 10. That is its job. One job, always output 10. So I'm asking you here to circle the input 0. So I want you to take your pen and circle 0, okay? And put a box around the expected output 10. So what we're doing here is this example checks that this left-hand side, this program here, has the same output as the right-hand side. Now you say this right-hand side doesn't have an output because it's just a number. Well, that's right. The output of a number is a number. I mean, it's not really a function. It's just the number, but that's what it's checking, is that the thing on the left is the same as the thing on the right. So when we call 10 rocket height with the input 0, then we expect that it gives us back 10. All right, so if the input is 10, we're trying on a different input now. If the input is 10, 10 rocket height is going to output 10. So we're checking that. We're saying, here's an example. For example, if we call 10 rocket height with 10, that means that we put it inside these parentheses, inside this imaginary circle here, right? The two parentheses go together in an imaginary circle. The first thing in one of those imaginary circles is the name of a function that we're going to use. So we're going to use the 10 rocket height function, and we're going to give it the input 10. Okay, so the 10 rocket height function, if you hand it the input 0, or if you hand it the input 10, it's going to give back 10. So we expect box around 10. If the input is 100, or 17, or -8, or pi, or e, or anything else, 10 rocket height is always going to output 10. So one last time, we're going to just circle the input and put a box around the output, the expected output. And then the example is going to check, hey, what is the actual output of this? Is it the same as the expected output, the output that we expect? And now I'm asking you to write one more new example. Let's say you pick the number 42 as the input. Well, you would write example here, just like here, because the example tells Dr. Racket that you want to give an example where the thing on the left should equal the thing on the right. So you write example, inside you write 10 rocket height, just like you did before, paying careful attention to having dashes, and then the input, now your input is 42, but the output is still going to be 10, because 10 rocket height's job is always to give you 10. Go to the computer, type it in, and then click Run. If you did everything right, if you typed everything right and typed 10-rocket-height and then a space and then 100, and you had parentheses around those, and the example you had parentheses, and there are no extra parentheses around the 10, because in this language, parentheses mean something, right? It's not just grouping, it's not just what goes together, it's exactly this way, all right? Because the parentheses mean, hey, I've got a parenthesis. Next thing coming up, that's a function, right? So if you put a parenthesis around the 10, for example, next thing coming up is a number. That's not a function. So you didn't tell that that's not what Dr. Racket wants. So you take that, you type it in, and you run. And if you just get the little arrow, then you know it worked. If you get an error, a big red box, or a big box saying, you know, we've got some problems, then you got to fix those problems. Good luck.